the suburbs. Writing for me is always a fantasy exercise to go into the world of noir, to go into those movies I loved and those books I loved. But for me, this became very much a piece of that. A 13-year-old girl, for any of you who were 13-year-old girls or knew them, the world is very... I didn't look at you, Duane. I didn't purposely look at you. The world,
you were so darling.
The world is very exciting, the world that you haven't yet achieved, the place you want to go, you want experience, you want to explore, you're on the brink, you're on the cusp. Everything seems really important and terrifying and exciting. And there's this sense that everything could go wrong in a minute. You know, that how many times when you were 13 you say, my life is over. You know, the stakes feel very high.
I say now 39 actually.
You know, this is how I live my life every day. So that's sort of the place that the narrator drops herself, and I think the world, to me, the suburbs. I think Sara could speak to this as someone who grew up in the city. The suburbs can be very dark places, in part because they do not seem to be from the outside. So for me, it's sort of a carryover, moving the noir train to in this case, the Midwest suburbs, and sort of letting it unfold darkly there. That really didn't make a lot of sense, but maybe we can talk about it more as we go on. Glad I set the stage for you guys. Sarah.
Well, Megan, my book is Claire DeWitt in the City of the Dead. It is a detective novel. It is the first in a series so far. I have 4 books planned in the series. I don't know if there will be more after that or not. I'm just finishing up the 2nd book now. So this is my first series, my 4th published book. We won't talk about how many unpublished books there are. It's a sad, sad topic that makes me cry. One thing I think is interesting that I just finished my tour that I was talking about a lot is Megan and I are close friends. We talk a lot. We have a blog, and I basically harass her constantly. I email her almost daily needing moral support on one thing or another thing. She's laughing. She's like, that's true. And she's like, she sure does. It's so funny.
I don't really know her that well, but I...
Yeah. And my definition of friendship is kind of different than Megan, so it's like a little bit of a conflict, but I still email a lot. And see, they're not laughing because they don't know.
So you stalk Megan, basically. You're a stalker.
Yeah. And I'm starting with Duane now. I'm just getting into the stalking relationship now. But one thing I thought was really interesting and that I've been talking about a lot because I find it fascinating is we don't talk a lot about our works in progress. We never really talk that much about what we're working on because it gets boring. You don't want to talk about what you're working on. Talk about things normal people talk about, or as close as we'll ever get. And we ended up with all these similarities in our books, in both of our books. Her book isn't technically a detective story, but there's sort of a lot of amateur sleuthing going on with the young girl, and my book is mostly about an adult, but there's flashbacks to my narrator, a detective's childhood, where she was a girl detective, where she is 13, 14, and 15, and she is solving crimes in Brooklyn, where, as we all know now, I'm from. But the suburban-urban difference, and there's all these other differences in time period and tone, and we come from very different backgrounds, but all these similarities came up in our book that we wrote over the same time period, which I thought was really interesting, because we never talked about it until we read each other's books.
And then we traded early drafts, and it was uncanny because there were so many similarities.
Yeah.
So who hacked whose password then? Was it...
Yeah, well, the good parts were Megan's, and then the joke parts were mine.
But it is funny because Sarah's book, Dope, came out around the same time that my first book, Dialogue, came out, and they were both 50s noir. Only mine was LA and hers was New York, and we hadn't even met yet.
Right. But you've written like 20 books since then, and that was my last book, so I don't know.
So clearly we have a deep psychic connection.
Yeah.
It's a little alarming at times.
Yeah, it's a little odd. And of course, Duane just wrote a book about a 13-year-old girl. The other two that's based on his childhood as a 13-year-old girl. So it's really weird because I didn't actually know that about him until tonight.
Before therapy, it was I'm a lot different now than I was at 13.
Yeah. I know.
You'll get there, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying.
No, I've seen these pictures, and he was so darling, and he was actually a real amateur sleuth. Is the crazy thing. So a lot of people don't know that about Duane. So I think that's a good segue. So you were a 13-year-old girl amateur sleuth.
That's a crazy segue. Thank you very much. Take that segue and actually turn it back to the audience and actually ask if I can tweet your picture. Would that be okay for you guys? Is that allowed in the state of Texas? Can I tweet you guys? Because I want to photograph the crowd here. Because no one at home will ever believe it. Actually, there's people here to see us. So, all right, everyone smile and say noir.
Noir.
Beautiful. I'm going to get Bill very special because Bill's hiding in the corner. Hi, Bill Grider. Touche. All right.
Bill didn't want to be seen. He was hiding in the corner.
Exactly. My book, yes, is about a 13-year-old girl who grew up to be a middle-aged man named Charlie Hardy. It's a different book. It's actually like Sarah is the first in a series for me. It's my first series ever. Usually my characters don't survive long enough to be out of the first.
Yeah, we know that way.
By default, they kind of all die. So I keep at least one person alive.
They're poisoned at least.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy is a alcoholic house sitter who gets by watching rich people's homes all across the country. And of course, he picks the wrong home, the wrong day, the wrong time, and he finds a very sort of drugged-out looking sort of B-list actress hiding in this house in Hollywood who claims people are trying to kill her. And he thinks, oh, she's high, this is silly. But there actually are people trying to kill her. They're called the accident people. And it's based on the people who are trying to kill Randy Quaid and Evie Quaid. The same people trying to kill those guys. It's uncanny. Randy's right, don't mock him. He's totally right, they exist. Star Whackers.
He's like your nugget.
Oh, totally.
I totally believe everything he said.
Yeah, I mean...
Do you actually?
Yeah. Well, no, maybe not.
We were talking about
more.
the new Bret Easton Ellis book on the way here, which is like an extremely dark version
The sequel,
of your book.
The sequel
Have you read
to...
it?
Lesson Zero.
Bedrooms.
Yes,
yeah.
I did read it, yeah.
And it's like an extremely dark version
But
of
much
your
better
book.
written and more literary, certainly.
No. Your book is so much more fun. I almost wish I had not read the Bret Easton Ellis book because it was so disturbing. But
I liked it.
I noticed you're less easily disturbed than me, I guess. Or just less identified with Clay, I think.
Right.
But I noticed the similarities to your book. I thought it was really interesting.
Oh, wow. Thank you. It's called Funny Games. It's totally fun, full of games, crossword puzzles, secret finds, unless you're bored halfway through.
I didn't think the crossword puzzles did. They must be invisible.
Exactly.
You need the invisible ink.
That's such a good idea, though. I'm doing that in my next book.
What's that? The
Like
crossword
fuck
puzzles?
writing.
Yeah.
I'm just putting puzzles in and stuff.
Here, it's a rebus, or whatever. Actually, titles are funny. I thought, your title, obviously, is your last book, The End of Everything. This is it for you, right?
That's it.